What do 3D street painting, the dome of the Capitol building, and the Twilight series have in common? Well, actually, they were all influenced by the Italian Renaissance. Not only do I play a video game set in the time period of the Italian Renaissance, but I am also in an advanced placement European history class. There's a picture of in-shot picture of the video game, and here's a picture, as you would see in the textbook, of St. Mark's Basilica. And you may not care about European history, but what you may not know is the Italian Renaissance has influenced a lot of the luxuries and inventions that we enjoy today. And the three main areas in which the Italian Renaissance has affected the way we live today is art, architecture, and literature. Let's move on to the first point. The first point is art, and it's the most recognizable and flamboyant part of the Renaissance. The painters tried to emphasize emotion and fluid movement in their paintings, and rather than depict religious scenes, they would depict scenes from mythology. As you can see here, the dancers they actually look like they're spinning around in a circle, waving their arms. Here is Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. This is the most widely recognized piece of art, and it's so popular because of her expression. People aren't sure if she's smiling or if she's just doing a normal face, and it's really, people really like that, I guess. And this information came from Davies and Kennedy's book, Medieval and Renaissance Art. Perspective art. Now, they tried, instead of using symbols to depict things, they tried to represent things as I would see them, using perspective and adding depth to the paintings. As you can see, everything is focused on one central point, and that would be these figures and this sort of line of sight right there. And this information came from Renaissance Art and Architecture article by Columbia Electronic Encyclopedia. This brings me to my next point, architecture. Perspective art allowed architects and painters to create ideal cities. Here's a picture of one of their ideal cities. They were very good for efficiency. Everything was planned out before, the focal point being the center courtyard, and they were able to transport goods much more effectively. It was also way better for defense because the enemy would have to completely surround the outside barricade. And it was also aesthetically pleasing. It was way more beautiful than just building buildings wherever they wanted. And this information came from Glancy's book, Architecture. A lot of the architecture was influenced by the humanist movement. The humanist movement, they went back to Roman ruins and took aspects from old architecture and incorporated it into their new buildings. As you can see here in this old piece, there's a lot of pillars, and in a lot of Renaissance architecture there are also pillars. They actually had to go back and rediscover the formula for concrete because they had not used it for so long, and the recipe was lost. And finally, the dome. This was the symbol of power and status of Florence. They had to rediscover how to make the dome because they had forgotten how to make it, because all the buildings before they just made peaks and slanted roofs. And Brunelleschi rediscovered how to make that. It's actually the largest brick dome still today. This information came from Shaw, Hunt, Martin, Rosewind, and Smith's book, The Making of the West. And finally, we have literature. Before paper was vellum, which is animal skin people would write on, or papyrus. And the Europeans got the paper making process from the Arabs, who got it from the Chinese, and so they could mass produce more fragile paper. And here's a paper mill, ancient paper mill. And finally, it's the Gutenberg press. Johannes Gutenberg invented the movable type, in which they could mass produce pages. They would create letters and rub ink on it and then press it down onto paper to create an impression. And before the Gutenberg press, people could make one Bible per year. It would be monks or scribes just writing it. And after, one man could make hundreds of copies of a Bible per year. And this really encouraged public literacy. There were more books to be around, so they weren't as expensive, and it was a lot cheaper to make. And this information also came from Glancy's book, Architecture. Now to review, the Italian Renaissance influenced art, architecture, and literature. And what I want you to get from this speech is whether you are admiring a piece of art, looking at an innovative building, or you're just reading a book, try to remember the impact the Italian Renaissance has had on our lives today. Are there any questions?
What game did you play that was set in the Renaissance, and how accurate do you believe it was?
Well, actually, the game I played was Assassin's Creed. The second installment through the second, third, and fourth installment were all set in the Italian Renaissance, and many parts of the game were very accurate, historically accurate. Many of the characters in the game were historically accurate. However, the plot line probably wasn't very accurate. Any more questions? Yes.
How well do you think that games like that have influenced you in your European history class?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked that, because I have actually had great grades over the Renaissance because I had played all three of the installments and the characters, and what's happening is actually what happened in the chapter of the history book, so I was able to get much higher grades because of it. If you have any questions, just send me a message or post a message to the course. Thank you.